Welcome back to the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast. My name is Jeremy Devins, and this is the new Friday forecast, which we'll be doing again every Friday morning Pacific time. These episodes will come out so you can plan for your week ahead, especially those of you overseas where you're a day ahead. This will help you be ahead of the week. So if you don't know your own birth chart, that is very helpful to better interpret and understand what's going on for you. And you can get your free Vedic birth chart at my website, quietmindastrology.com, where you can also sign up for the weekly emails where I send out more details, more practices, more specific write-ups about the transits every week that you can work with exclusively to the emails. And you can also schedule a reading there. I've got a couple of spaces open for August still, and if you want to book a reading in August. So we are, of course, using the Sidereal Vedic astrology, which is not the same as the tropical Western astrology. So if you're new to my podcast, please check out the episodes in the archives about the differences between the two, because there are some big differences. And I want to talk about what's going on this week, including with the Venus retrograde and why it's so impactful. I'm still hearing from a lot of people, hearing about a lot of breakups and changes and adjustments in relationships. I'll share about my own process. I went to a 3-day retreat, just getting back from that last night. It's amazing. And we'll talk about the transits happening this week, including a big shift into the sign of Leo coming up, including a stellium in Leo this week. And I'll be talking about some questions people have. I've been getting a lot of questions, and I want to put those together in an episode coming up, just answering your questions. So if you have any questions about Vedic astrology, message me on Instagram at quietmindastrology, or send me a message. If you go to quietmindastrology.com, there's a link to send me an email of any questions you have about Vedic astrology. So my retreat, personally, share a little personal experience here, is going into this work around relationships is so present right now with all this energy in Aslesha this month, which is this deep transformative healing energy in Cancer. And we've got a lot of transits through there, including the Venus retrograde. So it's a time to go back over deep relationship issues to address things and learn about them. And I am always doing personal growth work myself, always journaling, always doing my yoga practices and meditation practices. But there's always there's more there. There's deeper layers to it. And when we have a set container of time to go deeper into it, a lot can come up that you might think you've got it, you understand it, it's right there. But when you actually go into the processes and go a little deeper, you uncover some deeper stuff. And that is so much of the Aslesha kind of energy, and so much of what I experienced the last few days, going really deep, really relatively fast with a group of strangers, but feeling a lot of safety and connection in the safety of the container to do that kind of work. And there's so much that only can happen relationally. Like, I can do all the journaling I want and do all the practices I want, but it's not the same as what comes up in relationship with another person. The projections, the stories, the patterns, the things that are kind of out of your control, and you start to interact with someone and they say something you don't expect, and what comes up. And we are relational beings, and there's a lot of need for relational work as well, which is highly recommended and encouraged. If you have a place to do that, a retreat you can go to, or work you can do around this. And one practice you could do that is something that we did do this week, and I've done before, you may have done this before. It's the ancient Hawaiian practice of hoʻoponopono, which is about rectifying, resolving, addressing old issues of relational issues. It could be between you and a family member, you and a partner, a friend. Also could be you and yourself, or you and the universe or God. But it's this powerful practice of looking at that relationship to rectify it, to resolve old issues so that you can get clear again and you're not carrying that with you. And again, some of those things you might think, oh, it's no big deal, or it's fine. And then you go a little deeper and you crack something open. And I experienced that a few times in my retreat this weekend, it feels like a weekend, but it was during the week. But there is a sort of cracking open that can happen through the layers of armor and protection we put on to just go through life and, oh, it's fine, I'll move on. And we've been through all these big Saturn transits the last few years, and there's this sort of toughness, hardness, a hard shell that we can sort of accumulate of what is what it is, and we move on and we go forward. And that is a very Saturnine way to handle it and to say, in the big picture, it'll be fine. But there is this more Cancerian energy, which is the opposite of the Saturn Capricorn energy, that's happening right now this month, of this Cancerian energy to go into it of, well, what is the pain there? What is the feeling? What is the emotion that wants to express? And it is not as suppressed as it was when Saturn was in Capricorn, and there was just this constant cycle of stelliums in Capricorn and Aquarius that was happening from 2020 on. That's not happening anymore. There's a lot of different energies happening now. So great week to do this kind of practice. In the email I sent out, if you're on the email list, that I talk about how to do that practice more. I'll touch on it here as well if you're not familiar with it. The simplest version of it, sort of modernized version, is a simple mantra. So you could do this journaling. If you don't have someone you can work with this, but it is really, really recommended and powerful if you can do it with somebody. You don't have to be, it doesn't have to be the person you have the issue with necessarily. That's sort of a higher level version of it. That's can be more vulnerable, more triggering even. But if you can do this with a partner who's willing to also do this work with you, really powerful. And the simple mantra is to say, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. And you can do that in that exact order. You can adjust the order a little bit if it feels resonant, but it's to find where those 4 phrases are true for you, not forcing it, not faking it, but to bring those energies up around this person that you may feel not so loving towards, or you might feel like the ego saying, I didn't do anything wrong, defending myself. But then you have the humility of saying, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and the humility and returning to seeing this person as a sovereign divine being to say, I love you and thank you. Powerful, powerful practice. In this context of a podcast, it's hard to transmit just how impactful that can be. If you've done it before, you might send me a message and let me know how it's been for you. But cracked my heart wide open doing that. Just yesterday, actually, we did a deep process with that. Full days, long days. We were doing a lot of different processes, but this was one that I think I could share here in this context that might be helpful for you. And again, you can journal or do it with somebody who also is open to doing this kind of work. And in your head, this is not a head exercise. In your head, you might be thinking, what's the big deal? It's easy, simple. It's a hard exercise. It has to come from the heart. And in your head, it's almost nothing. It's almost meaningless. Okay, whatever, I can say those words. But when you touch into your heart and express from there, it can really crack you open. It can reveal emotions that were under the surface. It can create deeper connection and intimacy and open you to more connection and intimacy going forward, which I think is one of the most powerful, important lessons happening right now. The Sun and Venus and Aslesha and this retrograde. Venus, it's so big that it is the time to go back over relationship wounds and issues and deeper underneath the surface of, oh yeah, I dated this person and it was just this thing and it was just that. That's the sort of surface level, that's the sort of Saturn approach to it, but we are in this very Cancer time of, well, what more was there? What else was under the surface? What did you not express that you wish was heard, or what did you want to say? And this is one practice that could help you uncover some of that. So I hope you find it helpful and hope you get to explore that even just for like 10 minutes. In this retreat, we spent maybe 2 hours with this and doing it with partners. So different people bringing up the different projections that we hold. And you may look at your mother with a certain projection and image that her best friend would not, and vice versa. So the people in our lives and the people we interact with are largely a reflection of ourselves and our projections. And this is one practice that can help us see those, help us take those off, help us have a new relationship with them. Now, let's talk a little deeper about what's going on with the Venus retrograde, because people are asking online, like, why is this so powerful? What's going on here? And it is not just the Venus retrograde. It is a lot of other things happening at once that intensify this whole thing. So we've recently had 5 Gandanta transits, or are about to, or one of them, Venus is in the Gandanta right now. The Sun is there. What is Gandanta? If you've listened to the podcast or other Vedic astrologers, you may know it is a karmic knot, K-N-O-T, like you tie a knot. And it is the undoing of that knot, a loosening of it. So wherever you have created knots and ties, and this is all tied up, and this is all the way it is around your relationships, or this particular relationship in your life, the Gandanta transits loosen those knots so that we can untie them, because otherwise we end up all knotted up through our lives. Those knots may be potentially, who knows, past karmas of past lifetimes. We can't control that. We can only control what we put our attention and energy on now. And if you are trying to move forward in a healthy way in relationships, but repeating patterns, getting stuck, feeling powerless in a way of like, why am I doing this again? That is a Gandanta kind of issue. That is a knot. That is, you could say, a samskara, a neural pathway that has been created, and it becomes easier and easier and easier to repeat that pattern than it is to change it until we're in the Gandanta transits, and particularly around Venus matters of relationships, what you love, your artistic expression, your creativity, which also ties in with the Sun being here in Gandanta, of your power, your personal power, your creative, life-giving expression, the light within you, in your eyes, and the light and radiance that you emanate, which can be dulled through too much TV, too much excessive eating, not having time in nature, too many drugs, chemicals, things kind of dysregulating your hormones. You lose the vitality and light that you gain when you do things like meditation or yoga, and people come out of yoga and you say, oh, you're glowing. That is the Sun, that is your vitality, your power, your essence that you've reconnected to through breath and movement. Women become pregnant. People say, you're glowing, you're radiant. That is the love of life and all of the adoration and support and nourishment of life that is coming to her through the universe, ideally through family partners. As well, and that energy, we all can have that glow and vitality, but sometimes it gets blocked and knotted up. With the Gandanta time, we can unravel where our vitalities become blocked and untie that knot. And you could think of it like this very long rope of your lifetime, and trauma happens, we tie a knot, or we feel ashamed, we put our heart out into the world, we feel rejected, and another knot gets tied. Eventually, if we keep doing that without untying those knots, without doing the work to heal, resolve, address those things, we just become all knotted up, and we see it physically with physical holding tension in the body, mentally with getting stuck in mental patterns and getting hooked into all the drama of like social media or politics or these things where people, this one knotted up person fighting with another knotted up person, and not doing the deeper heart work, seeing the heart connection that is possible between others. And the Sun is the essence of who we are. And when we go through these Gandanta transits, those knots are very obvious and very present, and the most likely to be unknotted and untied. Observe for yourself. Test everything I say for yourself. Observe with deep inquiry, self-reflection, svadhyaya of your own life right now. Is there a knot that's coming up? Is there something that's stuck? And ideally, you have some time in journaling, self-reflection, time in meditation, time in practices, or time to work with this with a friend or a coach or therapist or astrologer or somebody who can hold space for you to work with this energy. So powerful. We can't do all this on our own. We are social beings, and we need connection. We need others to give us perspective. And my hope with this podcast is it gives you perspective of what's going on in the universe, as best as I can interpret it through my limited human perspective and lens as well, through thousands of case studies and research that I do to see these patterns, because the patterns are clear. And whether you have the space to do this work or not, these issues will come up, and there's an opportunity to heal them, even in small little ways of just noticing your habitual responses. You want to yell, or you want to defend yourself, or you want to push back or run away, or whatever the pattern may be. You have the moment of just stepping back and observing yourself and seeing, doing that thing again. There's that pattern. And I'm just going through the motions. You're like watching yourself and like, there I go, doing that thing. And maybe you can have an inch of space to step back and observe it and say, there it is, there's that thing. And then you have a little more identification of what it is. Okay, it started when she said this, and then he said that, and then I said this. And then the next time it happens, you've got a little more room to step back another inch and see another perspective of it. So my hope for you as you go through this Gandanta time right now, that you have just an inch more of perspective to step back and observe your relationships, observe yourself of what is this pattern playing out. And then specifically, things are always happening to some degree, but specifically right now, it's around your emotional expression, finding your vitality, your light, your power, your energy, your creative sun, life force, with Venus in relationships, in relating to others and connecting with others, not just romantically, friendships, family, partners, pets, and observing those patterns. And specifically with all the retrogrades this month, going back over lessons you've learned or ways of being or ways of perceiving and old things that have worked well for you in relationships, to go back to a book you read, a modality you used, a therapy you used. I feel this sense for myself personally of sort of returning, going to this retreat space, because I have not, this specific energy of this space felt very familiar and similar to where I was really immersed maybe 7, 10, 12 years ago, really immersed in those practices that I haven't been in that same way recently. So it feels like a returning, a going back to what has worked well for me. And hopefully there are things like that that you could return to that have worked well for you in the past. Health-giving, nourishing, really deeply nourishing things. Not the nourishment of junk food, which is nice. Venus retrograde may draw you to want to indulge. Great. But then, after you've indulged, you work that karma out, you express that. Now, what really nourishes you on a deep level? And there's an opportunity to return to those things and deep healing to be found in those at this time. Now, the other Gandanta planets going, Mercury, Mars, Moon will be there as well. So that's all. Mercury and Mars were there, and Moon will be there very shortly. So just a lot of this untying of knots, loosening of knots, so that we can be more open. Like imagine the long rope again, all the knots, and you take all those knots out, the rope is longer, it's more adaptable. You can move it into all sorts of different shapes. You can tie it up again. You can go back into those patterns, make another knot. But then eventually later you come back through the Gandanta transits and you untie it. And this happens every time we go from the last water sign to the next fire sign. So the Gandanta from Pisces to Aries, the last water sign to the first fire sign, and then Cancer to Leo, the first water sign to the second fire sign. And then when we go from Scorpio to Sagittarius, the second water sign to the second fire sign. So it's coming up. We'll have this coming up later, like January. Venus will go through another Gandanta, January, February. So it's always happening in layers, but we are in a big one right now. And essentially, it's like the things that don't really serve you will be taken away. And eventually everything will be taken away. We are just on lease. This body is on lease to our consciousness, and then it just dissolves into the dust or the earth or whatever. I saw a mushroom coffin now. That might be the way to go. Your body in a mushroom coffin, the whole thing decomposes pretty quickly, relatively, compared to a coffin. So we all become that eventually. We all become back to the earth. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It just changes forms. So we will change form. Everything will change form. And when we get attached to form, we suffer. And when we go through these Gandanta transits, we are shown where we are suffering, where we are attached to form. So we can remember that it's 100 years, it's all gone. All of it, So it's just not getting attached, not getting caught up in this Maya, but then also we get to enjoy it. We get to explore it. And a big part of this training for me this week was also in the Tantra yoga tradition of enjoying the life, enjoying the senses, and eating slowly, enjoying the senses of smell, taste, touch, hearing, sight, and not just taking them for granted and just indulging and forgetting the beauty of that and slowing down with it. And with all the transits right now as well, it is a beautiful time to be slowing down. So other big impact on the Venus retrograde, you're still on this topic because it's so big. I've been talking about it for weeks now, but it is such a big one this year. It's one of the most important transits of the whole year. There's also a Jupiter, Rahu, and Saturn aspect on Venus. So every planet has an aspect. Some planets have special aspects, which include Jupiter, Rahu, and Saturn, as well as Ketu and Mars. They have special aspects. And when Venus was in Leo, which it just moved out of, and it will move back next month, but with that, we're still feeling the effects of that Jupiter, Rahu, and Saturn aspects. Jupiter brings a sense of expansion and opportunities for major growth and addressing our old relationship issues. Rahu brings a passion around relationships that can lead us potentially into addictive patterns or seeing our addictions, but also the ability to resolve and change them because of the Jupiter aspect and because of the Saturn aspect as well here, which brings a sense of limitation, containment, and boundaries around this work, and gives us an opportunity to learn humility, patience, and this sort of bigger picture perspective that brings us wisdom over time and more maturity in our relationships. Powerful, powerful stuff. So I highly, highly encourage, if you're not doing some sort of work around relationships, to do that this month. Could be the hoʻoponopono practice, journaling about that. You could do that many times. We did that many times in my retreat, and each time there's layer, deeper. And with all the Aslesha this month, that's the kind of work that I highly encourage exploring. And as we learn all this, we gain more maturity and wisdom and perspective. So, wisdom of Saturn is you touch the hot stove, never need to do that again. You never need to learn that again. You touch the hot stove with your finger, you're going to get burned. Other things, it's more subtle. It's not as obvious and direct. But the Saturn wisdom is about learning those lessons. Like, you date in this way, you move in right away, you're going to get burned. And it's this series of events, whatever the pattern is for you. Everyone's different. But for you, it's about learning, what is this pattern? Where is that hot stove in your life and relationships? Or you know what's going to happen. And if you don't know yet, you're going to learn in this transit. It's like, oh, that's what it is. That's where, it's when you start to get close with somebody, you just stop hanging out with your friends and you're just all about them. Or you start getting close with somebody and you lose your sense of boundaries and you don't know what you need and you don't remember how to ask for what you need. And then you become enmeshed and codependent and resentful and, domino after domino. But as you move through this transit this month and all these aspects coming up again next month. So the Saturn energy being here and the Jupiter energy, actually, those are our great teachers. And Venus is actually a great advisor and benefic energy as well. So this is all for our healing and growth and all opportunities to uncover these knots and untie them and have a bigger perspective, gain more wisdom, more maturity, and not need to keep repeating the patterns. Now, if you want to know specifically what area of your life these things are happening, go back to recent episodes. I go into the sign-by-sign horoscopes with the Venus retrograde and the Saturn transits and the Saturn retrograde, all the big ones. I do sign-by-sign horoscopes so you can know like what house is being affected for you. And as you learn your own astrology more, if you get my free birth chart and the free training with it, you'll see, okay, when I'm saying Saturn's in Aquarius, you look for the 11 in your chart. Imagine Saturn is there, and then everything I'm talking about is filtered through that house for you, for your ascendant and your moon, only in Vedic astrology. This does not apply to Western astrology, different system, different interpretations, different stuff. But when you know your Vedic chart, you start to learn it inside out. And that's what I really want to teach on this podcast, is empower you to really learn this stuff for yourself. So when the transits happen, you look at your own chart, you can look at your partner's chart or your friends or your kids and know the potentials here. Never to control it, never to be OCD about it, but to be able to see, okay, I see the energy, the opportunity of life before me. And this timeline that's playing out. And then you get to work with it rather than just kind of walking in the dark with a blindfold of maybe I'll buy this thing, maybe I'll go here, maybe I'll move there. It's just like a total mystery. This gives us some tools like a map. Like you imagine you living in a city without a map at this point, with everyone having a map on our phones now, a GPS. Just to imagine like to live, like just drop you in the middle of like Peru with no map, like how challenging that is. You know, you can figure things out, you can ask for help, you can find stuff. But when we're navigating life and all the ups and downs and all the facets of all these areas of life, it really helps to have a map. And that's what the stars are. They're markers in space that tell us, you know, go here and you'll have this effect. And this is happening now and this energy is coming up. And it's so powerful, so empowering. So hopefully this podcast is serving that for you. And as you follow the transits and look at your own chart, you can work with these energies and have a map to how to work with it and catch these energies, because they only come around sometimes like once in our whole lifetime. And really every day is unique in that way. It's like today is special, unique, will never happen again. So how do you work with it? Like what do you focus on? And as you gain more time freedom, if you're an entrepreneurial type person, you want to have your own thing you do and your own pursuits, you have total time freedom. You work when you want, you choose your life. You know, as you maybe have an hour of that this week, maybe you have the whole week. But as you gain more of that, it becomes more important to know like what's going on in the universe and how do I work with it. Of all the choices, of all the things I could say yes or no to, how do I choose which ones? And this gives us a filter of like, well, if you know, when Mercury goes retrograde at the end of this month, if you're going to go try and buy a new cell phone, good luck. You know, I've tested this myself. I've tested the gods. I've seen the research from multiple people. You know, it's just going to be harder. You're going to struggle more. You're going to, it didn't have the SIM card, and you got to go back, and you got to exchange it, and they sent the wrong phone, and blah, blah, blah. You know, these kind of things. Every Mercury retrograde, it's just certain things, you know, are going to happen. So that's what we're doing here on the podcast. Certain transits, we know what's going to happen. We know how to work with it. So let's talk about the transits happening this week, as I'm showing here on the screen. If you're watching the video on YouTube or on Spotify video, you'll see that this is what's happening today as I'm recording this on August 11th. And if I change the time and jump ahead 1 week, then we end up with this big pileup in Leo by the end of the week. But not too much moving beyond the sun, moving into Leo, which is pretty big, and into Maga. But the outer planets staying the same. So all the big themes of the outer planets that I've talked about in past episodes are ongoing. Those are long cycles, so go back to those. And we'll look at what's happening today. And then also next week, Mars will move into Virgo. Or this week coming up, Mars will move into Virgo. That's a pretty big one as well. So let's look at what's happening this week. So Saturday, August 12th, Mars in Uttara Phalguni in Leo. And it will go into Virgo as well in Uttara Phalguni for 21 days. It has the Saturn aspect on it, which makes us hardworking and patient right now. It has the the Rahu and Jupiter aspect, which makes our action more auspicious, actually, with Jupiter energy. But it can be a little bit erratic and unclear of what to focus on at times. But there is this huge opportunity for personal growth through physical activity with the Mars energy. And especially now going in this week, from August 12th on for 21 days, 3 weeks, it's a great time for taking assertive action. Like, make a to-do list and check it all off. Get stuff done. Take action. Move through any challenges, pursuits, goals you have. This is a powerful week for goal setting or taking action on goals. Mars is the warrior spirit to get stuff done, aspected by Saturn, the structure, which the warriors love structure. Warriors thrive in structure in very structured lives to get the task done, to get things done. So we all have the warrior archetype in us. We all have the Saturn wisdom elder archetype within us. So this time, with Mars in Uttara Phalguni, specifically inside of Leo and then Virgo, it's about a good time to be physically active, get things done, achieve your goals, be creative as well as this strong sun energy here, and creative emotionally, expressing yourself, stepping into your vitality, your power, your authority. And everyone has this possibility, whether you are a leader, teacher, speaker, guide or not. You have that sun energy, that projection of power, authority, confidence in yourself, and how you use your voice. And just in this retreat this week for me, there was somebody there who had a very, very quiet voice, very beautiful person, very gentle soul, which I resonate a lot with. I was very much that when I was younger. I did a lot of singing lessons, a lot of work around projecting my voice, theater, improv lessons, all this to help me get this channel of my throat open more, so I could express from my navel, which is more of like the solar sun energy, through the throat and out. The words we speak can have the sun behind them, our navel, our third chakra behind them, or not. And when we don't have the sun behind our words, they lack clarity, power, expression. And it does not mean, of course, it doesn't mean being excessive or dramatic or pushy or bully or any of that, of course. It's just about your inner strength, your inner power that everyone has, your Agni, the fire element in your core, expressing through your voice, your ability to manifest and create. And as in the Bible, in the beginning was the Word. Or in the Vedic tradition, everything's the sound of Om. The Om is the beginning of all creation. And it is pervading in all creation at all times. The sound, the expression, the word, the phrase. So as we empower our word this month, this week, we have a stronger expression and more power and authority. And we can more easily manifest and create the life that we want to create through that communication. And seeing this person this week, it really reflected to me, it's like seeing myself 10 years ago. And again, it's not that this person there needs to change or needs to be like me at all. It's just my projection of, I see myself in this person. I see how I communicated that way. And for me, I wanted to, I didn't really want to change. I didn't see anything there. I was just talking. But now from the work that I've done in my own personal journey of what is my path, I saw that reflection of like how important it is to me to be able to express in a more clear, expressive way, more projection, more expressing my voice across the room with more clarity from the third chakra. And I think that is important for all of us because our words create our reality. And if our words are clear and direct and intentional, our lives are more intentional, our results are more clear. If we want a goal, we can set it and be more clear and direct and attain that goal. So that is some of the work here that's possible with this 3 weeks of Mars in Uttara Phalguni. We can also gain new ideas, new perspectives that can really drive us and increase our ambition and feel that sense of that warrior spirit of what do you want to move towards, fight for, drive a stake through, shoot an arrow at, put a stake in the ground. This next 3 weeks is the time to explore where that is for you. It's in Leo and in Virgo, so your authority, your power, your clarity. And Virgo is a very healing energy, very intentional, thoughtful energy. So that's good for the warrior to be thoughtful, intentional, clear, and that kind of energy, putting a stake in the ground of like, I stand for this. I am fighting for this. I value this. I'm putting my energy towards this. Because we have choice. We can choose. You always have choice, whether you're in a job where you don't want to be, you're choosing to be there. And I have bills to pay. Well, you're choosing to have the lifestyle that requires those bills. It's important to always remember this with Mars, and especially when it gets to Virgo, we have choice. And if we want to heal and we want to set a target to change our life, we want to change job, change home, change financial situation, this energy is the potential to do it. And I say this again as somebody who was, I didn't set goals. I didn't want to be pushy. There's a lot of fear of expressing myself personally. I was very, very shy as a kid. I would only talk to people up close. I would walk across the room to talk to somebody. I would not talk across the room. Very shy. And does not mean your path is my path or I am in any way superior, of course. But I'll say for me, and maybe there's some reflection, some lesson, something that's valuable here. Doing work to strengthen my core and express from the core through the voice. And the throat chakra is a channel really through the core, the belly, and through the heart is the filter, that comes through love, comes through care and compassion. And then we can manifest through our word. And we create our reality with our word. Coming from the navel, what empowers us to explore right now. On Wednesday, August 16th, a new moon in Aslesha in Cancer. And this new moon begins a new possibility, a new potential for deep healing, deep growth, deep perspective. And I actually will make it easier if you're following the video. I'll click through so we see that time. August 16th, at the end of the day, we have that, the beginning of the day, August 16th. We have that new moon in Aslesha, healing emotional wounds, doing deep emotional work, new emotional beginnings, and all the things I just said around relationships, around your power, your authority, your expression, new possibility, new potential at this time. The next day, on the 17th, we have the stellium in Leo, 4 planets. And that is, stelliums when there's multiple planets, 3 or more in a sign. More potent, the more planets it is. But Sun, Moon, Mercury, and Mars, all here gathered up in Leo. And this is just after the new moon, right after. So it creates this sort of potent, powerful, creative energy of what do you want to move towards? What goals do you want to set? I'll talk about the sun being in Leo in a moment, but everything I just said amplified. And then we add, sun in Leo also, August 17th, and in Magha Nakshatra, it emphasizes self-expression, stepping into leadership. And again, whether you have any sort of role of leadership or not, you are leading by example. You are leading your pets, your family, your friends. You have an influence, and everyone in different ways. Sun in Aries, person like me, wants to be more in leadership roles because I see ways that I can help facilitate for groups. But Sun in Libra, the opposite energy, helps lead in ways that are cohesive to the group, that are not as necessarily as much as my own strengths, things I've had to cultivate and learn. But a Sun and Libra person might not want to be the person who initiates the project, but once the project has begun, you can create more collaboration, more teamwork, more connection, more harmony, and lead in that way. Wherever the Sun is in your chart, in this Leo transit, look where the 5 is in your birth chart, the sign of Leo. And in that house, Sun is there to show where you can step into more leadership, power, authority, creativity, expression in that area. And like for me personally, just an example, in all Virgo risings and moons, this is over my 12th house, this transit. So that means more expression, connection in remote settings. And I'll be going to this retreat center a lot now because I live by it. I'm in a very remote setting in my home. So that's a perfect example of like how to use that energy in a positive way right now for Leo ascendant or Virgo ascendant and moons, because the Leo's in your 12th house of foreign lands, of remote places, spiritual work. Look where Leo is in your chart. The Sun is there now for a month to show you where to step into your expression, your leadership and authority more in that area of your life. And now that's in Magha Nakshatra, very creative, powerful transit. Is associated with royalty, encouraging us to find where we feel empowered, where we feel like royalty. You might even want to listen to music like that, like Beyonce, Jay-Z, these rappers that talk about like being powerful, like music that makes you feel powerful, that can be incredibly energizing and vitalizing to listen to music like this, of course. And this also has a connection to ancestors. So connecting to learning about your family history. Maybe you explore family tree, ancestry, DNA, or 23andMe, if you've done those kind of things. You can explore learning about your history, your family. This could be energetic. You're doing family constellation work, or you're doing some lineage healing kind of work. I've talked to people recently doing this kind of work in different ways. That's beautiful Magha kind of work. Magha is about ancestors and family history and things like that. And that work brings about new levels of success and vitality, and it might not seem related, and it might not seem like it's like, how does this make any sense? Doing family constellation work, and what does that have to do with I want to make more money or set this goal? But it is related, and it does bring more of your essence, your vitality, your power forth, so that you can more easily move towards that goal. Then on August 18th, the next day, we see Mars moves into Virgo. And if I move back, so it's late into August 18th. I'm using Los Angeles time, Pacific time. But Mars in Virgo brings a very focused energy that emphasizes hard work, attention to detail, practicality. And with this placement, there's a desire to be of service and improve oneself. And you can really have a lot of personal growth at this time. And it will continue to be in Uttara Falguni, which I mentioned earlier, talked about that. But Mars in Virgo is this very detailed, warrior, precise, getting stuff done kind of energy, and being discerning. Like one exercise Warren Buffett has talked about, one of the wealthiest men alive, started with nothing and built up a huge empire of wealth. He talks about how you can make a list of all of your goals, all the things you want to do in life. Write it all down. Then narrow it down to 25. Like, what are the 25 most essential? If you could only do these things in my life, what would they be? And then narrow it down more. This is the Mars kind of warrior, cutting, decisive, clarifying, Virgo analyzing energy, and all the Saturn and Aquarius stuff too, and all the retrograde. It's like going back, okay, what have I wanted to do? What have been my goals? Sun in Leo, it's just like, let's go, let's do it. And then you got this list of 25 things. Like, that's what I want to do in my lifetime. And now you pick the top 3. Decisive, cutting, clarifying, boundaries. And then you say, okay, this top 3, that's all I'm going to focus on. And then the other remaining list of the 25, that becomes the list of things you do not do at all. Very strict warrior boundaries, very strict Saturn and Aquarius retrograde, creating structure. Do not do those things. Now you've freed up a lot of energy, a lot of vitality to just do the 3 things that really do matter. So that's something to explore. Knowing my chart, that is very challenging for me. I've tried it at times. I found it helpful at times. I found it not helpful at other times. These are just tools, just things to potentially explore. Something that worked really well for him, Warren Buffett. Good to take advice from elders. I think in Mexico here, as a strong appreciation for elders, it's so beautiful. It's lacking in America, where I grew up, but it gives you perspective, and that is taking advice from an elder who's had a lot of success. And this month, there's a lot of potential for a lot of success as we go through this deep healing work of the Aslesha portal we've been through and are still in to some degree all month. But now, as we go through this week, more potential to get stuff done, to initiate, to begin things, to move forward. Awesome, exciting times. Hopefully you found this episode helpful and gave you some perspective. If you'd like to leave a review of the podcast, you can leave a review on Apple Podcasts and click the link in the show notes to go to quietmindastrology.com/monthly review. And if you leave a review, I will send you a process to do your own monthly review, which is great to do on the new moon, August 16th, or the beginning of the month, or anytime you just want to catch up. If you're like, it's already August 11th, this month is flying by, you can still do the monthly review anytime in the month. But I just ask that you leave an honest review on the podcast. It helps more people find this work. That is my whole intention here, is just I want everyone to know this work. So my goal is that when I'm an old man and people say, what do you do? And I say, I'm a Vedic astrologer, I don't have to explain what that is anymore. Because everybody knows, everybody gets it. It's like, oh, I'm a Aslesha ascendant. Instead of, oh, I'm an Aries. How does that work? Blah, blah, blah. Because nobody in the West really knows what Vedic astrology. It's like 1% of people maybe. Everyone knows their sun sign though. Like 90% of people know their Western sun sign, but nobody knows their Vedic. So please share this with people, because it's so accurate. It's so helpful. It gives us a timeline perspective of life. Like, I want everyone to have access to this. I want everyone to know this. I'll be teaching my mentorship program soon, next month. I share this with as many people, everyone who wants to learn. I want this information out there because it's so life-changing. And here's my 8th house for you. I think Western astrology is great, has a lot of value, but it's very hard to justify following a system that says Mars is in Leo when it's actually in Cancer, or Mars is in Libra when it's actually in Virgo. We can see it with our own eyes, and we have this practice, this map of consciousness right in front of us in the stars. Well, I'm out in Mexico in the middle of nowhere, so I see the stars very clearly every night. It's like breathtaking. But we have that map right there in front of us, behind the clouds, behind the atmosphere. Very clear, very direct what's happening. And Vedic astrology is the clear map to uncover it, through thousands of generations, stories and traditions passed down to understand it. And it's right there, and let's use it. Western astrology is great for the seasons. It's great for understanding the seasonal energies, seasonal types of people. But if we're going to talk about the planets and stars, we need to know where the planets and stars are. And Vedic is that. And my whole 8th house little conspiracy theory mind is like, if we continue to follow an inaccurate system, we will not have clear access to our intuition. We are lying to ourselves. I know that's a strong statement, but it's, not to throw any shade at any Western astrologers, but we cannot say that a planet is in a sign when it is not in a sign. It is not true. And when we're not being truthful to ourselves, we cannot see the truth. We cannot hear the truth clearly. So it's important that we have a system that is true. And Western astrology is beautiful. It's like the sun is in the spring energy. The spring, it is in the spring section of time. Yes, it's true. The equinoxes and solstices are the same. And there's seasonal energies. But we have to be honest with ourselves, and to be honest with ourselves requires looking at an accurate system, an accurate map. We cannot say the ocean is to the left when it's in fact to the right. We are lying to ourselves, So again, people might feel charge in these statements, but I don't mean that. I don't mean charge in the statement. I don't mean to discredit anybody. But when we lie to ourselves, we use an inaccurate system. It becomes harder to tell the truth in ourselves. And it's so important that we have a truthful system. When we look into the stars and the map of consciousness, we're looking for the truth. And the sidereal zodiac is following the precession of the equinoxes. It is not 100% perfect either to astronomy. It is very, very close, but it is slightly flawed as well. So it is not perfect either. And I'm always open to learning and being wrong. And I hope to continue to learn. And I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. But I do know for myself, my own personal experience, when I followed my Western astrology, I suffered a lot more. When I followed my Vedic astrology, things seem to flow a lot easier. I still have my own flaws and imperfections, and I'm human and all this, but it does seem to me that I'm more in touch with my intuition, more clear, more intentional, and always a work in progress, always learning and growing. So hopefully you find this result as well. You follow the Vedic astrology, you follow the recommendations, the intuition that comes from you through looking at these symbols and these patterns, and you find it helpful and you find it useful and it helps improve your life. And if it doesn't, delete the podcast. Don't listen to me. Follow someone else. Follow what works for you. I'm not attached to being right. I am just wanting to share what I found incredibly helpful, and hopefully you find it helpful too. And again, all that to say, my intention is just that more people find this as much as possible. So leaving a review helps that. Sharing with a friend helps that. Share it on social media. Share it with a friend and ask them, does this resonate with you? Is this what you're going through? Go on my YouTube channel. I've been getting amazing comments this week in my Venus retrograde video. Well, that one's become very popular. And lots of people saying, this is exactly what I'm going through. Thank you, So hopefully that is helpful to you as well and maybe resonates. And if it's not, tell me. I want to improve. I want to make sure what I'm saying is accurate and resonant and reflective of your experience. But I'm grateful I get to see with people every week, clients every week, and hear the impact and the effect that this is having because of my teacher, because of Matab Benton. Look him up. He's amazing. I would not be here without him and all my great teachers. So if you want to go back to where I'm learning from, go to him. Go to the book Beneath the Vedic Sky, David Frawley, all these great teachers, James Braha, KRS, Joni Petrie, Sam Gepi, all these great Vedic astrologers out there, Camilla Sutton, DM Astrology on YouTube. I'm not the only person. I'm not the arbiter of truth. I am just the vessel to share all this. So hopefully you find this helpful. If you want other resources, those are great ones as well. And share it with friends, share it with people. This work is profound and healing, and hopefully you find it helpful as well. Thank you for listening. Hope you have a great week, and look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast and the Friday forecast.